Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 4.
Volume 1.
Volume 1.
Don't forget, we're talking about as much as they'll give us.
I forgot that it was Volume 1.
Of Season 4.
Of Season 4.
That's how seasons work.
You know how things work.
You know seasons are 7 episodes and then 2 episodes.
So we're going to be talking about...
And we're not upset.
We're not upset at all. But we'll be talking about episodes 1 to 7 inclusive, which is the full part 1 of Season 4, which we mentioned so that if you are in the future, maybe going through our back catalog and listening to this, and you're like, I just watched Stranger Things Season 4 in the year 2025. I was behind. I'm going to go listen to their episode. No, they released it as part 1, and part 2 is not out yet, and that might be obscured later. I guarantee you, once part 2 comes out, if you go to hit play on Netflix,
they're all just going to play.
It's just under one.
Season 4.
Yeah, because there's no reason for this. But we'll talk more about that, I think.
I feel like our feelings have been made quite clear on the subject. And person from the future who got to watch it all at once, jealous.
Yeah, jelly. Well, am I? We'll unpack that more. But also, hello, people in the future. Time travel's crazy.
What's it like?
Right? I hope it's better. So we're talking about Stranger. God, I hope it's better.
Come on, better.
I hope it's so much better. We're talking about Stranger Things on today's episode of the podcast. Just to let you know, if you want a little bit extra of this podcast, this month's Patreon exclusive, we covered Our Flag Means Death over on the Patreon page at patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. And that was a fun, jaunty one.
That was a fun, jaunty one. Actually, the other day, as I was going through our Patreon exclusives, I found out we did Stranger Things Season 1 as a Patreon exclusive.
Whoa!
Because that show popped off so late and no one expected it.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
We did it as a Patreon like a month after it came out.
Huh, that would be a fun time travel journey to go back and check that out.
If you want to time travel, that's on the Patreon episode.
So we got those. Just want to let you know that we have bonus episodes over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. You can also find a link in the show notes. But we're talking about Stranger Things today. Before we get into the spoiler-filled section, whenever we talk about a new movie or TV show, we always give you a spoiler-free review. So if you're on the fence about watching this, not sure if it's worth your time, or just want a little taste of the episode while you're catching up, then we're going to give you a spoiler-free review. Once you hear the music, that's going to be then entering the spoiler-filled section. But for now, a spoiler-free review. The simple question, Diana, did you like it?
For the most part, very much no. Yes, for the most part, no. It is so long. It is such a slog. Everyone is so split up. There are so many characters. It's mostly writing problems. The directing's very good. The effects look really creepy and cool. The actors are all the same as the other seasons, and they're all pretty good for the most part. It really is just huge writing issues. It's not without good parts. Episode 4 is absolutely incredible. Episode 4 is really, really good. And episode 7 was pretty good. They actually brought some mysteries together in a way that was surprisingly good for a season where the writing's being very bad. No relationships feel like they went anywhere. Everything feels like you're like, you know who these people are. We're not going to build any characters or anything. But also, everyone gets so much screen time. It is such a weird season where nothing goes anywhere and it takes forever. And so there is some bright points. Pretty much everything in Hawkins is quite good. And then everything else you don't even need. Oh my God. This long ass season could be like an hour. Overall not enjoying it. There are some bright points that make it watchable every now and then. Andrew, did you like it?
I did not. I did not. This is the best made thing that has no reason to exist. It has no drive. It has no purpose. It has no writing. It has no character. It has no plot, no arc. But it is well made. It looks great. The effects are cool. The creatures are awesome. All of the actors are doing just terrific top tier work with everything that they're given. This is honestly it feels like a nightmare of a show. Like it feels like a literal nightmare I've had before, which is like someone came up to the Duffer Brothers and was like, all right, your play is about to start now. And they're like, we didn't write a play. And they're like, well, everyone bought tickets and there's an audience full of people. And then you have to go out and just improv and vamp. This feels like Netflix was like, we're losing subscribers, do something. Here's a dump truck of money. Please go, Duffer Brothers. And they're like, hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Is that anything?
Do that for 9 more hours.
Okay.
9 more hours.
And just like the panicked flailing is why it's bloated. Like it's not bloated because everything's so good you can't edit it down. It honestly feels bloated in the way that like a first draft or improvising a story is bloated, that like there is no time to cut anything out because we've just got to get it out to the public because we are losing subscribers every second.
Which is why we theorize you're only getting half a volume right now, and they're stretching it out to July to be like, you can't cancel, you got to wait till July to watch the rest of Stranger Things. And
yeah.
it honestly feels like Netflix, like, because they had all these budget cuts recently. I'm like, did you fire all the editors? Is every editor fired? They're like, we got to put everything we filmed up on the screen. There's no one to cut it shorter.
This is the only way we know how to do it. We've got to get it out there.
We have more hours of content than ever before, technically, because it's so freaking long and boring, and most of it goes nowhere.
Yeah, trying to get this out quickly is the only reason I can think of as to like why it is so bloated on net. It feels the opposite of carefully done. It is all of the most talented people doing their first pass on something, but it is that. But that's how I feel. I do think that there is a group of people that this is for. I would say if you haven't seen this, my recommendation is to save your time and don't. Unless you are a huge fan of seasons 1 to 3, or it's just about vibes for you. Because, and I think that Stranger Things has those fans where it is just like 80s horror, and even though this season isn't the best of it and they've done it better in the past or whatever, if you're like, man, I just want to hear some synth and see a kid run through the woods. And
they got that.
They got that. If like this is just your vibe, it's more of the same vibe. And it may be too much of it, but if you're in for just vibes, I think I could recommend this show.
I think so as well. And if you've watched all 3 seasons, like, you probably do want to see how it ends, but I would say, like, have your phone ready. You're going to be bored a lot.
Yeah.
You're not going to be, like, throwing your phone mad bored, just like, this scene's still going, huh? Kind of bored. Like, so, like, it's
we're walking in slow motion again,
It's not engaging. But, like, some parts of it are. Some parts of it, you're going to be like, oh, Stranger Things is back. And then Stranger Things goes away again. And then Stranger Things comes back. And then it goes away again.
And for those moments, then the other question is, can this be spoiled?
It can.
Yeah, I think it can. Yeah, I agree.
Eventually. Takes a while to get to a spoiler.
The spoilers are few and far between just because it's a little bit bloated. Like, it is 4 hours between each spoiler. But they do exist, and I think that the spoilers might be the, like, handful of enjoyable moments in the show, actually.
It actually was quite a nice spoiler, not gonna lie. The biggest one. I was like, oh, huh. Yeah. That was really good writing.
I think if the show was a little bit edited a bit tighter and had a bit of a better rhythm, I actually wouldn't warn our audience about spoilers. But because so little happens, I think it actually is like a big part of the charm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that summarizes our spoiler-free review. I think we're both a not recommend unless you really have watched all seasons and really vibe with it. And it can be spoiled if you do still care about spoilers at that point.
I'll agree with that for the most part. Or just skip to all the Hawkins scenes. I actually think they work on their own. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, the characters are so disconnected. I think you can just watch Hawkins and it works.
There are, without spoiling really anything, there are multiple locations in this show. So there's some stuff being shot in different states, or not necessarily filmed in different states, but take place in different states. And it's only the Hawkins stuff that matters, really.
Yeah, I'll hold to that.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to be it for the spoiler-free section. I think we're ready to dive into the spoiler-filled section.
Let's go to the Upside Down.
The spoilies. Let's get in there. Stranger Things. It was too long.
Oh my god. I'm stuck on what you said about this being like a creative nightmare. To be given so much money and to make a product so bad.
Yeah.
To be like, here's all the money you could ever want to make a dream project. Do anything, Duffer Brothers. Here are the keys to the Netflix offices and everything. And you're just like, this?
Huh?
You wanted a lot, right?
Huh?
You're going to cut it down, right, Netflix? Netflix is like, no, we're keeping it all in. It's all gold, Jerry. I assume one of the Duffer Brothers is called Jerry.
One is Jerry Duffer, of course.
Jerry Duffer.
Of course. It's Jerry Duffer, the classic Lost Seinfeld / Duffer. I think it is such a blessing cursed creatively. And the Duffer Brothers are definitely not the first creatives to be put into a position similar to this. But it's been happening since the transition from season 1 to season 2 of Stranger Things. So originally, this show was meant to be an anthology. It was, we're going to do season 1. It is about these kids in Hawkins. Then we are going to fuck off and do something with a different cast in a different place that isn't related to that.
Yeah, it's going to be like American Horror Story. Every season is a different horrific story.
Similar vibe. And Netflix was like, oh my God, Millie Bobby Brown's a star. Everyone loves Millie Bobby Brown. We are scared to lose Millie Bobby Brown. You have to make her the star of season 2. And the Duffer Brothers were like, okay, I guess we can do that. Netflix was like, by the way, we can't really afford Millie Bobby Brown right now. We have her for 3 days of shooting. She needs a different story where she is alone. Also, her dadgent and momager will not allow her to be in scenes with other kids anymore. It's like, okay, I guess we can work around that.
Also, she died at the end of season 1.
Like the amount of backflips that the Duffer Brothers have had to do to please Netflix to keep the show going. And, you know, it's a positive trap. They made something so successful and loved that a company was willing to throw money at them to keep making the thing everyone loves. And it's hard to do because that's not what they wanted to do.
Yeah, you didn't have the ideas flowing. It honestly feels kind of similar to like the Wachowskis in The Matrix.
Yeah.
Like you did this great thing and then you didn't have ideas for more. You were like, that was the story we wanted to tell. But if you give someone enough money, like, we'll dig in. We'll go into the trenches and find some more story, but it's not going to capture what the original was. Although to be fair, I think we have to say this. Season 3 of Stranger Things was really good, and we really liked it.
It did get better.
They found it again.
It did get better.
And then they lost it again.
And then they lost. Then they absolutely lost it again. Yeah.
So you can, get the spark reignited with enough time, with enough money. I don't know what happened in season 3 that it worked, but
I think it's just like once you've pivoted back, it gives you time to think in that place creatively. You know what I mean? Where like. Season 2 wasn't what they intended for season 2. And you need to pivot and redirect and go back. And then it's like, okay, this is our future now. We need to prepare a season 3. We're not going to kill 11 at the end of season 2. We are going to prepare a season 3. And then you're making 2 with 3 in mind. Whereas when you're making 1 with a different season 2 in mind, that doesn't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, where do we even start?
I would like to start with, so when we started this show, first of all, we bring up the Netflix menu. I see how long the episodes are. I immediately yell fuck off out loud.
Yes, that happened. Mm-hmm.
What I find so frustrating off the start is the addition of characters. Because I am losing my mind because at the end of season 3, entering into this season, I'm like, this cast is too bloated. We have 14 primary cast members.
I think it was 16, wasn't it, for the episodes that had Paul Reiser?
So let's say 16.
It's 14 to 16 varying.
They have more cast than the Avengers.
Yes.
So starting this season...
32 movies in the MCU.
Yeah.
But this has more characters.
And so starting this season, I'm like, okay, you know what's going to be great? We're going to cull the cast a little bit. We got to scale it back. We're probably going to get rid of the older kids. They're definitely gone to college. Last season, Nancy worked at a newspaper. She was a reporter, full on. And now she's downgraded back to a high school reporter, which is the whole thing. But they're adding characters. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Why am I watching a scene between the star of the basketball team and a cheerleader, and then like the new D&D crew have started a band in their spare time? I'm like, I don't know these people. And not only like, I get you need to establish new people to be either cannon fodder or red herrings, but you need to do that by putting them in scenes with one of these 16 core cast members. I don't want to watch a scene with Jimmy the basketball player. Who the fuck is this dude? Get him out of here.
Everything with the basketball team is so baffling because it's the basketball team and like the cops and the basketball team and some cheerleaders and the basketball team and the D&D crew and every additional character I feel like is basketball because every other additional character was just to kill off, like cheerleader, the other reporter guy. Like, as you said, cannon fodder.
Eddie is a red herring / potentially cannon fodder now, maybe part of the crew.
But are you a red herring when we know you didn't do the murder? That's just a character.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, they showed us how Chrissy died. We knew. I mean, he's like, he's part of the plot. Finding Eddie is like the driving force for the basketball team who is cuttable.
Yeah. And for the cops who are cuttable. And for the FBI, who have just kind of faded out of the show quietly.
The two merging FBI forces. Yeah, where's the FBI who had the trailer in lockdown and now have left the portal unguarded, apparently?
And they don't have the trailer in lockdown, and they're nowhere to be seen, and they're just not part of the plot anymore. They've just kind of faded. They've introduced all of these like factions, and under the, I'm not going to say promise, but for me, I was like, the presumption is, okay, you've got to pay this off. Later, we need the cops facing off the FBI. Maybe like this new sheriff is starting to believe the kids, but the FBI doesn't want him to. But now we're 7 episodes, fucking 9 hours in, and none of these factions have figured anything out or have any real conflict anymore.
No, the only conflict we've had that actually paid off, that was cool, was the military just guns blazing into the buyer's house.
That was dope.
That was dope. When they just like, because most scenes are so long and drawn out, and like, not so much that you can see where they're going, but you know what most scenes are building to. And that scene really was just like, what if we order pizza to sneak out? And then the military showed up and started shooting people.
Awesome
which
scene.
was such a great divergence from how the rest of the show worked. So that scene was awesome. But now we've also had like 3 episodes of the military interrogating that one FBI guy, and they still haven't shown up.
Yeah.
To find Elle or to go to Hawkins or to do anything interesting.
Because the military, the FBI, the cops, and the secret shadow organization that Paul Reiser are part of are 4 separate within the government factions that are all fighting one another, but not directly other than that one scene in the
And
house.
don't get me started on the Russians, who have a demigorgon but are in Russia?
And have no effect on the primary plot of this show.
The most cuttable thing in the absolute world. Cuttable and shitty.
And cuttable, shitty. I like Hopper's escape episode. That was the best episode.
I think that
all
was
around.
also episode 4.
Same episode.
Everything
Great
in episode 4 was great.
4 was all banger. There was tension, there was stakes, there was conflict. Things actually happened.
Escalation, no L.
No, but otherwise, why is he in Russia? The Russians are just running other than the fact that they have a demigorg fighting ring, I guess, it is just a prison. Like a bad Russian prison, but they're not using the prison to get the demigorg to awaken a demigorg queen to open a portal to hell. It is just a character who's in prison.
It is, and in a show about like a magical upside down world and demons and monsters, it's a horror show. It's too ridiculous to me what is happening. Joyce Byers, regular mom, has broken into a Russian prison, a secret Russian prison, to save her not even a boyfriend. That's like if my mom broke into a Russian prison, a woman with no passport, who has never flown anywhere, hasn't held a gun, and was like, I'm gonna go rescue my neighbor. Not my boyfriend, not my husband. My kind of friend.
My romantic tension friend.
My tension friend. It is the most ridiculous thing in a show about a little girl with superpowers by far. And I don't, and it's boring. There's nothing happening that is connected. And also, sorry to keep rambling, it is a waste of David Harbour.
Harbor has had, and actually the other guard who tries to help him and then becomes his prison mate is a good actor and a good scene partner.
They've been building a little bit.
But David Harbour shouldn't have to start an entirely new show. David Harbour shouldn't have to star in the Prison Break remake / spinoff of Stranger Things within an episode of Stranger Things. That's not a weight this actor should have to bear on this show. And he does a great job of it, and he develops good relationships, and it works. And I couldn't agree with you more that, like, what the fuck is Joyce doing with an AK-47 in Russia? It makes no sense. And even though the stakes of this series have always been heightened nonsense, and that's part of the fun and charm, but the inherent logic is when you see something insane and no one believes you, even if you are quiet mother Joyce, Mom Jean wearing Joyce, if no one believes you, you've got to get the damn thing done and save your son. And this is a scenario where it's like, people believe Russian prisons exist and that the conditions are bad. And you are now Mom Rambo. You're Mombo.
And the FBI knew the Russians had been there. They're like, shit, there were Russians in Hawkins. We're covering that up, but we know they were here. And like David Harbour works in every other season because he is grumpy and he is surrounded by small, happy children. And it's funny. And that's why it's like, oh, he's grumpy, but he's protective, and the little happy children are all running around him, and he's like, ugh. But you put David Harbour in a prison full of other mean men, and it's just like, well, he's just one of them.
Yeah.
You gotta surround him with the happy little children that he can't control.
A room full of David Harbours doesn't work. It cannot stand.
I need to see a particular David Harbour in a particular setting. So yeah, him in prison does nothing.
But I feel like this is just kind of the general cast problem with, like, we got to do the general show problem of we got to do a season 4. We will spend anything, but also we can't really afford it, and the schedules for most of the actors don't work. So you're gonna need Millie Bobby Brown to be alone for most of it, and then these two actors are gonna need to be alone for most of it. We'll move this cast to California. But the actor who plays their mom, her schedule doesn't really work with that. So we're going to need her to be in a different plot line. So it's like, clearly none of the actors' schedules worked. They couldn't, there's no way they could make the schedule work.
I disagree with this.
Really?
I do. I think Netflix paying $30 million per episode means that they would make the schedules work. Like, this is where everyone in this show got famous from except Winona Ryder. Like, everyone has everything to thank Stranger Things for. Season 4 could be the biggest thing ever. I honestly just think they were like, it's too many characters. We can't have 16 characters in a scene. And also, these kids are still young enough that I think they can only work 8 hours a day. So I think you just have to break them up for filming purposes of, like, just having that many people on scene, and it doesn't work. But I really doubt it was an actual, like, we can't get this many people from projects. Maybe Millie Bobby Brown, I will admit. Fair enough. Everyone else, I don't think is in demand enough to not do Stranger Things.
I can definitely see that
for
argument.
the amount of money that they have announced they put into the show.
I can definitely see that argument, and I understand that. I think Millie definitely might be the exception.
Millie, I agree. Yeah.
And also, I know her parents don't like her being in scenes with other kids because her parents, by all accounts, legally allegedly, seem completely insane.
We really flew by what you said earlier, momagent and dadgent?
Dadgent and momager.
Oh, man.
Momager has been like an industry thing for a while, but her dad's pretty involved, so I'm through dadgent into the mix.
Okay, I guess I'm not down with the lingo. Those both were like, ooh.
Yeah.
Quick shade.
Yeah, quick shade. So, yeah, like, allegedly, her father was asking for like $100,000 bribes for people to have meetings with his daughter. And then that got public, and he was like, actually, I wasn't doing that. Never mind. Meetings are free. So it's like, okay, I think your dad was asking for bribes. You might. Their family allegedly seems like a mess.
But even having said that, like, if they didn't have her for a fully long time, she does so much.
Yeah.
Like, a third of every episode is her.
Yeah.
And, like, stuff that is cuttable. Like, oh my God, the first 3 episodes are just coordinated bullying that goes That is so weird.
What is going on with the bullying in this show?
I know that, like, 80s bullies are, like, a thing. Like, you know,
Yes.
80s bullying was more intense than other bullying.
In reality, it was worse, and in media, its portrayal is comically, like, brutal. 80s bullies were just murderers. They would murder you.
They were, but they would murder you. But when they did coordinated bullying, I think of, like, Carrie, where they, like, make her prom queen and they pour pig's blood all over her. But that's, like, days of planning.
Yeah.
This coordinated bullying was like on the fly, like a musical. Like they brought her into the center of the skating rink and like music played and there's a spotlight and they're recording her and they're all yelling snitch. And I'm like, did you practice?
The
Did you
DJ
practice
was
this?
in on it, who seemed to be an adult.
Yes.
Like when they had a random circle dance breakdown, like they had spotlights set up and
They
everything.
didn't know she was going to be there that day.
It was literally an accident. And I turned to you. We were sitting on the couch. I turned to you and I went, this is a business. Like an adult owns this business.
And they're just like highlighting bullying.
And every kid was super into it and like knew the moves and wasn't in the way. And there was no like child with a chair learning to skate. There was no adults. Like it's
Yeah, every child was completely unsupervised by an adult.
Yes, and they were all the exact same age, and they all knew who these two people were, and they all knew to chant snitch, and they all knew to skate in a circle, and the DJ was in on it and managed to stop it, and had multiple sound cues. Like, from where he was, he couldn't see what was happening, and she fell down, and he hit the ha wipe out button. I'm like, you weren't in eyesight of that. How did you coordinate that kind of attack?
And like other things, like they were filming it, and the fact that they were filming it never came into play, which really frustrated me for some weird reason. Like, I'm like, cameras weren't that common in the 80s that you're just carrying around. Like, is this not going to be some evidence that like the girl deserved it who got hit, or like clearly started it at the very least? And like, it doesn't matter. Literally, episode 4 comes around, and Paul Reiser says to Elle, Elle's like, is this about the girl I hate? He's like, oh no, don't worry about that. It's not gonna come up again.
We're gonna
Literally just looking straight down the camera. Don't worry about that. It won't come up again.
hand waves away a whole plot line.
The first half of the season.
Yes, is this plot line.
But then we get flashbacks that don't even really connect, and I don't think they were going for a parallel about how Elle was also viciously bullied at the school for special kids prison. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, why is everyone coordinatedly bullying Elle?
I'm starting to think something's wrong with Elle. I rarely take the side of bullies, but it's at a point now where I'm like, this is too many people who coordinatedly hate you.
And I actually get high school, because high school, you know, people get bullied, and people especially get bullied when they're at a new school and their English isn't great. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I think she would get bullied. Not this coordinated, not this planned, not this musical breakout. But when you're at the school for people who have powers and you're literally all wearing the same thing and have the same hairdo and don't even speak, how do you choose who to bully?
Yeah.
How do you even pick out a weak kid or a strong kid? You're all just imprisoned kids.
It should be chaos.
It should be all bullies, no bullies. I none of it made any sense. And like the parallels of there was no parallel to the double bullying.
No, there wasn't.
She just gets beat up a lot.
Yeah, and she doesn't have a clique. Like the basketball crew not wanting their teammate to hang out with a D&D crew. That is a high school bullying clique rivalry that I'm like, this makes sense. But to be like, let's make this woman cry because her dad died, and she's telling us that I think the lie is she's saying her dad was a firefighter or stopped a fire. Or no, she's still saying sheriff, but her dad stopped a fire.
He died in the fire at the mall at the end of last season.
Yeah, and they're still just like, what a shit. Fuck you. Like, why are you like this?
Oh yeah, who finds out someone's dad is dead at all and makes fun of them, let alone dead and a legit hero?
Yeah. Does not. What?
What? No.
It really takes me back to, and I've brought this up on the podcast a couple times before, I think also because we've covered this movie, is in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. It's the scene with Flash Thompson, who is an 80s bully, like punching Peter, fuck you, Peter, push you over, Peter. When Uncle Ben dies, and everyone in school finds out. Flash Thompson walks up, and Peter's like, "What do you want? Not today." And Flash is like, "I want you to, I'm sorry about your Uncle Ben." And like that was such, I'm like, that's the first time I'd seen that writing in a movie where I'm like, even the comical 80s bully understands that he is sorry your parental figure died tragically. There is
today's
no
not
one.
the day.
Yeah, there is other than true like psychopaths. Like you have to be Dexter level like of that like a dark person to be like, I am gonna go after you as you weep over your dead parent.
Yeah, like the Joker, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, like the Joker's killed Robin and now he's gonna laugh at Batman. That is the level of insane you have to be like, oh, your dad died and you're crying about it? Yeah, Angela needed a harder hit to the head.
And the teacher who's like, you're right, technically this wasn't the assignment. Fuck you. What? And none of it was the point of the show. It's all deletable. It is all deletable.
All absolutely cuttable.
It's hand waved away by Paul Reiser.
And this might be controversial to say for what we've been saying, but I actually don't think Millie Bobby Brown's very good this season. Very one note for me.
They've written her one note. She sells that note well, but they've written her one note. I think that the biggest problem with this is I agree. Millie doesn't get as much to do with 11 as she did in previous seasons,
Despite having tons of scenes, but it is the same thing over and over again.
It's literally regressing. Like clearly, the show didn't intend to go on, didn't think they could have her, didn't think they could afford her, because we're starting with it, and they have so little runway and nowhere to go with her character that it is just starting being like, she lost her powers. And I'm like, okay, I don't even remember that happening, but sure. We've got to get them back. Okay, well, why did you remove them to begin with? What do we have to do to get them back? Well, she just has to remember, kind of. Like, okay, so we don't really have to do anything? Okay, what about all this cop stuff with the bullying? They're like, don't worry about it, that's gone. And it's like, okay, so how are we going to get it back? It's like VHS tapes where we de-age our child actor. De-aging your child actor, when you've run out of story to tell so much with a character that you have to de-age a child actor to tell their prequel, that is bad. You should not have run out of runway for a character at age 17. At no point at 17 should you be like, well, we have no new stories to tell for a 17-year-old girl with PTSD who has military connections and has saved the world. We don't know what to do with that. So let's go backwards.
Let's do a prequel season.
Yeah.
Because prequels always work. People love prequels.
And a de-aged prequel.
Oh, man. I mean, for most of it, they didn't de-age her. But yeah, seeing a child get de-aged was freaking weird. Because every other time you have to de-age a child in literally anything, you just hire another young actor. Because kids' faces change so quick. And also, they all have shaved heads. They all look the exact same. 3 of the kids in the room looked like young Millie Bobby Brown with their little shaved heads. Like, they all look the exact same. This might be the first de-aged child I've seen.
I can fully agree with
Like,
that.
who takes
Twilight.
Ooh.
Twilight was the only other time.
I mean, that wasn't a de-aged child.
Okay.
That was like a CG child. But it wasn't like a person we took just 4 years off their face.
They did use scans of the actor who played the older version and tried to de-age it.
Right, you
But
did,
the technology
yeah.
was not there. The technology was not there.
At the very least, the technology is there now.
The technology is there. The story to support it is not. So yeah, they just don't know what to do with 11 in this season, but they haven't known what to do since season 2, unfortunately. But we got to find some positives. We'll talk about some positives of the show in a moment. Before we do, though, let's take a quick break in the episode to thank our wonderful sponsor of today's episode. We want to thank our friends over at Babbel.
Oh, Babbel. They make learning a second language super easy because it was not easy in high school. Ask me how much French I remember.
How much do you remember?
No.
Oh, 0. Yeah, it is tough. I did not successfully learn a second language in high school or university, despite trying both times. So we need something that is going to help us learn it while also being addictive and fun and just be like an easy interface and a way to do it better, and it's going to help us if we're traveling abroad or just want to connect better with people who speak that language.
Yeah, Babbel is a language learning app. It's been sold to more than 10 million subscriptions, and they teach bite-sized language lessons that you'll actually use. It's 15-minute lessons. It's the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. Every day I get a little notification. It's like, time to learn 15 minutes of Spanish. And I'm like, excellent. Love this. I'm just going to they go over what you learned yesterday real quickly, and you're like, got it. New stuff, got it. And I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go. Let's go down south.
Exactly. And they have lessons. So other language learning apps will use AI for their lesson plans, which is why you'll get sometimes sentences that frankly might not be that useful to me while I'm traveling. I'm not often trying to buy a hat. I don't know why that.
How often do you go to the biblioteca?
Exactly. Not that often. But Babbel lessons were created by over 100 language experts. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective, and you can choose between 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, German. You know the languages. You can check it out.
You know all the big ones. And their speech recognition technology helps you improve your pronunciation and accent, which I love. So you say the word back into your phone and record it, and they'll let you know if you pronounced it right. So helpful.
So helpful because you want to get the pronunciation correct and not completely,
embarrass yourself?
Embarrass yourself.
Yeah,
embarrass was the word I was looking for. Absolutely. Embarrass. Do not embarrass yourself. So check out Babbel. Right now, you can save up to 60% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/TFS. That's babbel.com/TFS for up to 60% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. And thank you, Babbel, for your support.
Thank you so much, Babbel. And now, some positives. Episode 4 really works. Every
top to bottom rocks on episode 4.
Which is wild because I kept saying that the Hawkins stuff works in actually most episodes. The Hawkins stuff is the most interesting. It's the one most driven. That's where the murders are actually happening. The Hawkins stuff has the best characters in it. But episode 4 is the Hawkins stuff works. Hopper escaping, very, very fun and cool, very exciting. The stuff he's doing to escape, it's happening much faster.
Yeah.
The military attacking the buyer's house and they have to escape with the one agent who's been shot. Super, super exciting. Everything with Max, very
that was the Max episode, yeah.
Yeah, very emotionally and really well driven of her writing the letters and everyone being we're gonna save you, but we don't know how, and going to the insane asylum to talk to the survivor and getting the hints. That episode is so good. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it had a different writer than the other ones.
It did. Paul Ditcher is the name of the writer of that episode.
That's what you were looking up. Way to go, Paul.
Paul, you crushed it. I don't have the information on it if Paul wrote other episodes, but everything is an A to B plot. We are here. We need to get here. What are the complications along the way?
Yeah, and everything builds, and everything's exciting, and there's emotional resonance happening, and there's surprises. That are earned and emotionally impactful. Max running towards the opening in her mind and all this stuff is crashing down and trying to stop her, and there's a music playing for a reason. Love motivated musical sequences.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible stuff.
And the style of it really landed too. And it was one of the more visually more interesting episodes as well, of getting to see the mansion in the Upside Down where this, I forget the name of the creature now,
Vecna.
but Vecna, where the Vecna resides. Visually really cool and appealing, motivated musical stuff. Everything was motivated.
Yeah. And also very shot differently. So the director also did great stuff because I think the attack on the house was a oneer or a fake oneer.
Or yeah.
Like when we're following the agents around who are shooting around the corners and the kids are hiding and there's gunplay.
Yeah, longer takes than usual there. And also too, just a more depth of field as well. There were moments where when the kids hop into the pizza van and they're like, hey, is that a military guy? And it's out of focus, actually a full house distance away. You can see a guy with a rifle coming towards them. And it's just stuff like that where I'm like, oh, this is a deep scene. I can actually see the scene go back a house. And I can see that there's things going on. And even when they're burying the body in the desert, having a conversation while you can see, I forget the stoner character. Argyle. So you can see Argyle trying to get the pen to work in the background in a pit 20 feet below them. It was just way more depth and complication, even visually, with more things going on simultaneously. Every aspect of episode 4 pops.
Yeah, the writer-director combo of that one, incredible. If it was the Duffer Brothers for that episode directing, then that doesn't make
It was
any-
not. It was Sean Levy. Is
Sean
the name
Levy,
of
of many things.
Okay.
I think he's Free Guy.
Oh, really?
I think that's Free Guy.
Okay, interesting. I'll look it up here now. But yeah, it was just a more impressive episode visually and in terms of writing. And I think the thing that really kind of freed that episode up, when we're talking about some of the bad writing a moment ago, like things like we're doing this whole 11 is being bullied storyline, and Paul Reiser shows up and she's like, don't worry about it, that storyline's over. In this scenario, we're dealing with the kids. We're dealing with Mike and Will and their brother. Jonathan.
There's so many people in this show.
There's so many goddamn people. But they're like, okay, we've got FBI babysitters. We need to come up with this plot. We're going to call Argyle. We're going to order a pizza. We're going to do this. Then we're going to sneak into the pizza van. And it all works on its own. And then that plot line is abandoned, but the surprise makes it feel validated. Like, it's not Paul Reiser being like, that storyline is done. It is, as the writer is, given the beats for the season to be like, here's what you need to accomplish in this episode. I think in realizing, well, if we're going to abandon one storyline and now we're starting another, which is them on the run trying to find the supercomputer in Utah, then what if I abandon a storyline in an interesting way? So it even took the uninteresting aspects of this season and made it work.
Yeah, the storyline didn't feel abandoned. It felt like a new obstacle had shown up.
Yes.
Instead of a character just looking down the barrel of the gun being like, don't worry about those agents anymore.
It was the director of Free Guy.
Yeah. So he's good. We loved Free Guy. Also with Joe Keery.
Oh, yeah. A little more Joe Keery in your life.
Little 7 degrees of Joe Keery happening.
Yeah. So that episode really worked.
That episode really worked. And I liked a lot of 7, I will say.
Episode 7.
The finale of Volume 1. I
Fair
don't know
enough,
how
yeah.
we're going to...
I was trying to think of, like, did we meet another of the telepaths named
fair enough.
numbered
They are
7?
numbered.
There's also numbered characters as well, but yes.
No, it's weird, as I said, because the writing has been so bloated and drawn out, but I think the connections of, like, who One and Vecna are and how they connect to Elle are actually really interesting and really well done. Like, well-earned surprises, like, actually, like, motivated, like, they gave you the clues. You can kind of, like, see it coming if you're really paying attention, but you're surprised in, like, a good way where you're like, oh, I could have seen that coming if I'd put enough clues together.
And the guy playing One, I think, is doing a really good job of that character as well, like, really ominous and creepy and really selling it, like,
But kind of, like, trustworthy a little bit.
Yeah. I would say kind of almost similar to... I mean, one of the things we liked in episode 4 is the guy who went insane, and they questioned the guy in his cell, and he's got the cut up eyes. Just a really creepy scene study, and the interactions with One in that episode feel very similar. To be like, okay, like this isn't the bloated additional characters like we've gotten throughout the rest of the season. This is, we've got an actor playing a character, and they are going hard at it, and here is a goddamn scene, is what you're getting.
Yeah.
And that works.
And here is a scene, in every other scene, everything he's done has been motivated and necessary, and no filler scenes with One.
Yeah.
No scenes where One is just like, let's take a walk and think about stars, and but it won't motivate our characters or mean anything.
Right.
Yeah, so I think the writing of that I thought was really solid.
One writing problem in that, though, that pisses me off, that completely undoes some of the positive writing of episode 4, and this is a huge plot hole, and I don't like being plot hole guy. Regular listeners of the podcast know I'll do it once in a while. I'll do it a lot of the times as a goof. I'll do it once in a while for serious, and I hate doing it for serious. But in episode 4, when they visit the guy in the insane asylum,
By the way, that's Robert Englund. He's Freddy Krueger, isn't he?
Oh, is that who that is?
Yeah, it's like stunt casting because it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street season.
I did not even put that together. Fuck me.
I also
Of course.
only got it from the credits.
Okay.
His face is all messed up.
Well, no, I can hear it and see it. Yes, no, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So when they visit him, he talks about how, like, the place is haunted. His family, or his wife and daughter, I guess, are killed. And he's almost killed, but the music is what brings him back.
The music saved him.
This is the exposition he says. It's the voice of an angel. He follows the music, and he's able to get back out from the upside down. And using this expository device saves Max's life. And Max then, throughout the rest of the season, or half of a season, is listening to her headphones, because if she gets sucked in, she can follow the music out. Somehow music goes through to the upside down. It is how this guy escaped, and it is, in fact, the way to leave. Then, once we meet number one in that episode, we find out he's the kid from that house, and he's just got psychic powers.
Yeah.
And he was, at the time, not related to the Upside Down.
No, just a kid.
In fact, a rift to the Upside Down had never been created before, so that was not where he was sending them. So he was just breaking the bones and destroying the body of his mother and sister.
Yes.
Because he's just a person with telekinetic powers. And then he goes to do it of his father.
Well, he was also doing stuff with their mind before that, because he made his dad hallucinate the crib and the fireplace and stuff.
He has telepathic and telekinetic abilities. But either way, and he didn't send them to the Upside Down.
No, he did not.
And music didn't save them. He's like, I got tired, and that saved my dad. And I'm like, okay, but we've already established that music is what saved your dad. And not only established it, have used it and enacted it
to save other people
in multiple other plot lines. That's load-bearing plot at this point.
Doubly annoying, though. In that same scene, in the same thing, number one is like, and then I framed my dad for the murders like I planned. And we're like, so the music definitely didn't save him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So double down on the music doing nothing.
So definitely not music then. So why did music save Max?
I don't know. Maybe he just hadn't heard a song for like 30 years and he was like, that's cool. That's a banger. And Max just got out. That was the first song Vecna had heard in like 20 years.
I guess, and it just confused
him. The first new
him?
beat. He's like, what is that?
Yeah, you know that new sound you've been looking for? Well, listen to this. It's Kate Bush. And Vecna's like, okay.
Kate Bush?
All right.
I mean, if I kill her, the music's going to stop.
So dumb that they unwrote that load-bearing plot point.
Very, very load-bearing. Like, it's the only thing keeping Max alive. I assume it's how we're going to have to save Nancy, unless it's just going to be like a smooch from Steve is going to like pull her out of it. I feel like it's going to be a smooch from Steve. I'm just going to lay some guesses down to pull her out, because I don't think they have any music together, although Max has her headphones.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Steve knowing her favorite song.
Oh, he's going to sing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work.
I think that's what's going to go on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that they undid that.
No, I agree. I agree, because everything else going on, I was like, oh, wow, you've really set this up well, and you really laid the foundations here.
And I like number one as being the son of the creepy mansion and shit like that. And I almost kind of like him getting thrown into the Upside Down by 11 and turning into this dude. That's kind of creepy, too.
Yeah, it's a cool, like, piece of story, and, like, we did never find out how the first gate was open to the Upside Down. It all works, and it really is, like, it does feel like a closure to her story, and like it's going to end things well and go back to where they started, and even though we didn't know where it started. So yeah, 95% of that writing is great.
Yep.
I have to get to my weirdest part of the show for me. Again, absolutely cuttable. Why is this here? And it is Dustin's girlfriend's Mormon household of craziness.
I literally almost forgot about this
How
insane
did
thing.
you forget? Like, I felt like we were watching a crossover with another show I'd never seen. This just fully fleshed out house of wild children who love the arts and dressing up like Conan and
all have wildly different personality archetypes. It felt like I was watching Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yeah.
Like a weird backdoor prequel to Cheaper by the Dozen.
Or like Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Like something with weird children has, even though we're already watching a show about weird children, a different kind of show about weird children has merged into our show.
Yeah.
And it is weird, and not in a way that was good. Bad weird. Bad weird.
Yeah, and it was all, even the show almost knows it, which is more upsetting, I think, that like
They were like, this doesn't fit, and we know it.
the score changes. So like it immediately turns into this like Danny Elfman doing family comedy of this like plucky strings of this like boom 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 wow ding 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 ding. And I'm like, this is not the 80s synth horror phantasma that the whole show has been. What are we doing here?
No, which is again why it felt like another show had arrived. Like Susie's doing her own spin-off show full time, and the Stranger Things kids have just guest starred on an episode of her show. If they released that simultaneously, I'd be like, oh, okay, that actually makes more sense.
Slightly more sense, yes.
Slightly more sense than whatever the hell this is.
Oof.
I don't even have descriptors for it. Like, I felt like I'd been thrown into the Upside Down.
And why couldn't they call her?
They had to tell her the phone number in person. Yeah, the fact that they knew her home address but not her phone number is pretty wild.
Yeah.
I don't know why you had Dustin's girlfriend's home address.
Home address and not phone number, or they couldn't get her on the phone, I think, or something, and I guess it made more sense to drive to Utah.
They had to kill a couple hours.
So now these characters, their journey was from Hawkins to LA, from LA to Utah, from Utah to Hawkins. And I don't think they have any new information other than they have the address of Elle's location.
Yeah, they're basically going to meet her at the door, I assume.
Yeah.
She's going to walk out and they're going to be like, we have a van, and they're going to jump in the van.
Yeah.
And yeah, they weren't in episode 7.
No.
The finale of the volume 1. Will and Mike were not in that episode.
No, not at all. Not at all.
They're 3 of the main characters. And that's why, obviously it wasn't supposed to be 2 volumes.
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, you can do, and traditional television does it, a mid-season finale. You can do a cliffhanger mid-season. It's not always my favorite. Traditional TV, it works. You can do a break. This is clearly just these episodes weren't finished. We needed to release something because we're losing subscribers. Here is the first 7. Mm-hmm. And then please stick around for another month for July. And that's all it is. Because it's not, you can't not have 3 of your mains, even though we have too many mains, but they just don't exist in the final episode of the air quote part 1 season 4 part 1. It's just a random stopping point. It's not a part 1 and 2.
Absolutely, because we couldn't even tell when this episode was over. Like 7 different points were like, oh, and that episode's, oh, it's not. Because they kept cutting to black.
Yeah.
Like it was over.
It just feels like it was one big script and they were like, just cut it up wherever.
Wherever
Netflix,
you want to cut it.
We don't fucking care anymore. Just cut it wherever.
I guess that is, that is the binge model. Like if you're going to sit down and watch it all at once, cut it wherever you feel like, I guess.
And here's the other thing that I find insane about this 2-part break. Is that, clearly is not actually a part 1 and 2. It's just a random stopping point to hold subscribers, keep them from leaving, get something out now. But it is 7 episodes that have been released. And then I think it's like July 1st or something, part 2 is going to be released, the other 2 episodes. Which is approximately 7 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So
if
your big strategy is we need people who love Stranger Things to hang on for 7 weeks. But we haven't finished doing the editing and post-production on the last 2 episodes. Just release it weekly. Like, you could have just released it weekly and no one would notice that you hadn't finished the final 2 episodes when you started releasing the episodes. But instead, Netflix is so slavish to its system of binge content that it refuses to cave in any way. And I find that insane because all of these streaming services are making like their choice as to what it is they do. Netflix is like, we do all at once. Apple Plus is like, we do 3 episodes, then weekly. And Disney Plus is like, we do weekly. Everyone's choosing their allegiances but no one is forcing you to. There's no gun to your head. Do what's right for different shows under the circumstance. You don't need to be the we do all at once distributor. You don't need to be the 3 and then weekly. choose what's right at that moment in time.
Yeah, Netflix is acting like they, like, when you signed up for Netflix, you signed up and they weren't allowed to release weekly content. Like, they're like, we've always been all at once release, and we refuse to grow and change. And that's definitely not why we're losing subscribers. Because I think you've seen from the successful shows, like the Disney Plus shows, they get talked about every week because you release one and we all talk about what happened in that one episode. It's a better getting people excited for a streaming service model.
Yeah.
I think easily, especially when you have like a big show. I mean, your smaller shows you can release all at once, try to grab people, get them to binge it at one time. But a big show that people are talking about, you should release it weekly.
Absolutely.
It causes more buzz. You get to hold on to it longer. It gets more people talking about it and subscribing. We've seen it every time. And Netflix is just really like doubling down on absolutely not. We will release it in volumes. That's it. And we wanted to. Not because we were trying to draw it out.
Yeah.
But because we wanted to.
That's always what we wanted to do. And like us as the audience are being like, we want weekly content, especially when it is discussable cliffhanger content that also too people would complain less that it was bloated. You know, if it's an hour 15 an episode, which is too much, but you do that once a week, you can get away with that. But when you're like, binge all of this, and I open it, I'm like, hour 15, hour 20, hour 5, hour 30, then I'm frustrated. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, not to like be braggy, but we have like screeners for these, and we got them over a week early. We still only barely finished this show in time to record this episode.
Yeah.
And we like tried really hard. Your show's too long. It's too much of a burden.
Way too much. That's what they're releasing burdens.
They gave us a burden.
Thanks,
Netflix.
Yeah, it's
for the burden.
Just do it weekly.
Just do it
because there is some stuff that works all at once. I think comedies. I think you should leave and stuff like that. I'm like, that's a fun day, and then also it's something that has more rewatchability in terms of like people are gonna like meme it and get some screen grabs and share some goofs, and it'll gain more online traction. Whereas discussion shows, which mysterious cliffhangery shows are. Yellow Jackets, I think, was a great example of that, of like people kept talking about Yellow Jackets.
You're making theories, you're noticing little hints.
And Yellow Jackets wouldn't have had that this year if it was a release as an all at once. You know?
Like if this had been a weekly release, I think I would have like, in a way that would have felt satisfying, might have guessed that the Orderly was one and was Vecna.
Yeah.
But like, and it was still cool like to like see it happen in real time. But I would have liked to like figure it out week by week and come up with theories about like, who's this guy, and is he imaginary or is he actually there? And because for a while no one else talked to him but Elle, and I'm like, oh, he's in her head. He doesn't exist.
Yeah, and that was, I think, that was a distinct possibility for sure. They could have went that direction, and that would have been a fun discussion to have.
Yeah.
Netflix, you're crazy for splitting the whole season. Well, I think that's it for Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1. We'll call it there. Let's go into the close, though. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we'll remind you, as we do every week, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It helps us move up the charts, find new listeners, and it encourages those new listeners to actually hit download, and it means a lot to us.
It means so much. We love to read them. It helps our podcast. It helps every other podcast. You'll feel really good about yourself, like helping out the podcast, leaving that review 5 stars, and we're like, thanks.
Simple as that.
All good stuff.
So do that on wherever it is that you get your podcasts. That's a free way to support the show. And if you want to support the show monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon. If you head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/FromSuperheroes, you can kick in however much it is that you have in the budget. You can do as little as $1 a month, 5, 10, whatever it is that you have going on for you. And you are not locked in. You can cancel. You can change at any given time. And depending on what you give, like at the $10 hero level, you get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month.
You get a bonus episode, and you get access to all the old ones. So when you sign up at the $10 level, you get so much talk from superheroes, you guys. And it's all just waiting for you. And you can be like, ooh, I'm going to look at this. And it's something we've never covered on the regular podcast, ad-free, just fun, All hits.
All hits. This month we did Our Flag Means Death. That is up right now. That is a fun, jaunty episode over on the Patreon page. So head on over and check it out. If it's in the budget to kick in something, kick in a little something. That is over at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That's patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
Oh, we're cutting this baby down. My change is the entire season happens in Hawkins. We don't go to Russia. We don't go to Nevada. Elle comes to Hawkins for her spring break because all of her friends live in Hawkins and she has no friends there. So she comes there. The killings are happening. They get her powers back there. I don't know. They did some shit in season 1 where she didn't have powers and they had to help her out. They stuck her in a little tube, or in it was like it was a pool.
Sensory deprivation.
Yeah. They made it just
chamber.
like they just made her a pool full of jelly or something.
Oh yeah.
So we can do that again. So basically everything happens in Hawkins. The other people can come if they want, but I want to cut down some people. So sorry, Jonathan and Will, you're out of the show. You're gone. I mean, Nancy's already kicked Jonathan out of her life, so he might as well be out of the show. So yeah, everything happens in Hawkins. We're just going to cut it all down. We're only sticking here. We're not going other places. We don't go to Russia, but what we do is in episode 6, when the kids go to the Upside Down, guess what? They find Hopper there. He's not in a Russian prison. He's been stuck in the Upside Down because he was next to a gate when it got exploded. Why would he be in Russia? So he's been surviving and he saves their lives, and that's how he rejoins the show. None of this Russian stuff. None of that happens. I think I've cut half of the show out, and I think it will be fun and streamlined. Those are my big changes. Hopper's in the Upside Down. We don't go to any other locations.
Love it.
Thank you.
Love it. Yeah, that cuts so much time. It's so much more efficient.
We don't need to do any of this stuff. And we can separate, like, while we investigate in Hawkins, kind of like they have been doing. Like, the group in Hawkins separates and you get little clusters.
Absolutely.
So I think that works. So yeah. So that's my big change. We're just going to make it shorter.
Very
Andrew,
nice.
What would you change?
I'm 100% on board with that. Make it shorter. I don't mind Hopper in Russia, but we just got to get him out of there quicker. Like, he has one good episode about him being in a Russian prison, and it's episode 4, and that could easily just be his story in episode 1 as he escapes. My big change would be that all of the older kids are gone. Straight up gone.
No Steve?
No Steve.
Babe,
I'm sorry.
I love Steve and Robin. I can do without Nancy and
Right.
Jonathan.
Yeah, they're all gone.
All right.
I get, and I think that's part of the reason why the cast is so bloated and has made no cuts over 4 seasons, because Netflix is like, but somebody loves every one of these characters and we can't afford to lose that subscriber.
That's fair.
So they're unwilling to get rid of any character. But, Joe Keery, beautiful hair aside, I'm like, go do something else, you beautiful bean. Get out of here. All of the older kids have graduated and they are gone. And it is about the kids, the air quote kids, being the older kids now, being the age of the siblings that they turned to for help or who tried to protect them. And now they've got it's more of a coming of age story of like, we don't have the older brother, the older sister, or like the person to turn to when our adventure gets too scary. If we go off on an adventure, that's our fucking adventure now. So that's what I want, it's just the kids. And they can break off with, and I'm with you, they all stay in Hawkins, and they can just break off into little groups to investigate stuff like we did in season 1 to ease the load on all of them being around all the time for all of the filming. Break them off into little groups, but it's just these kids. We've got to narrow the core group down to 6 actors. We can't have it this bloated. And then the other thing that I was thinking is that Hopper, if he's in a prison in Russia, I don't know how Russians got him out of there, because I thought what they were going to do if the Russian prison has like a demigorg fighting pit was that they had a connection to the Upside Down. So I wanted Hopper to go into the Upside Down in Russia and try to get back out in Hawkins. I thought that was going to be the journey we go on.
You would have to walk across the ocean.
Or like get a plane.
Oh,
like,
I guess planes are over there.
Yeah, like he finds a Russian plane and fucking flies it across. Like it's as reasonable as Joyce
Yep.
crashes a plane. You know, like
It is.
that is as realistic. And actually, he wouldn't even have to fly it across because I think in this scenario, the Russian prison isn't even in Russia; it's in northern Alaska. I think was
I
what
think
they
from
set up.
Alaska she flew to Russia.
Did she?
That's why.
Okay.
That's when they crashed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But either way, I think Hopper stealing a Russian prison plane in the Upside Down makes more sense than the mom jeans Joyce stealing a plane and breaking into a Russian prison.
Honestly, that sounds really fun, and I would like to see that. Yeah, and I really like what you said about the kids, because you make a great point that this is like the end. So you should end with the kids becoming their older siblings and not... Because it's not the story of the older siblings.
Yeah, the older siblings shouldn't be in high school for 4 years.
No, I think Steve is the only one who's graduated. Even he is like still dating high schoolers and showing up at high school events, which you can do for 1 year. Just the 1 year. So yeah, I think I will give up my Steve and Robin as much as I love them, and I will agree with this change of just the kids. They come into their own. They do finally do something completely on their own. It's their adventure. I like that. But Hopper gets to fly a plane on the Upside Down.
I think that'd be fun.
That's fun, babe.
I think that would be fun. Yeah.
I think it makes more. You're right. It's more sense than Joyce with a gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I think we did it. I think that is it for Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1. We are going to be back next week. Next week, we're gearing up to the release for the new Jurassic World. So next week, we're talking about Jurassic World 2, which, if I remember correctly, is called Fallen Kingdom.
Is it? Oh, is Dominion the new one?
I think Dominion's the new one.
Okay. We love this series, as you can tell, you
We're
guys.
huge fans
Of the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, we are huge.
We actually are huge fans of
we
the
are
dinosaurs.
huge fans of the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
Dominion is the third one that is going to be coming out.
Okay.
Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
You nailed it.
Is indeed the movie we'll be talking about next week.
Excellent.
So we will be back for that next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me online at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can reach me at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.